ברוכים הבאים לפסטיבל הקולנוע הבינלאומי ה-36 חיפה, אני רון שמיר, מנהל שותף לפסטיבל. אנחנו מאוד מאוד שמחים לארח כאן את הבמאית, התסריטאית, היוצרת זוהי וויטוק, במאית של ג'מבו, שהוקרן בתחרות הרשמית בסנדנס ואחר כך בברלינלה, ואנחנו נשוחח קצת על הסרט. היי זוהי.
Hello.
Okay, I think we could agree that Jumbo is not a regular, even not a normal love story. And well, maybe you will differ, then you can elaborate about it.
Yeah.
But when I was watching it, my experience, my personal experience, when I was watching it for the first time, was that I'm going through different phases or even almost different genres throughout the film. It starts like a teenage, growing up, coming of age drama, becomes almost a horror story, and ends a little bit like a romantic comedy. And I thought this was great. I mean, these transformations of the script. Maybe you could elaborate on the basic idea itself and then how you shaped it into the actual script of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. So the actual idea of the script came from first me reading an article about a woman whose name was Erica Eiffel. Eiffel because she married the Eiffel Tower. So, when I first read that article, I had the same reaction, which was I laughed and I was like, this is really strange and out there. It was just an entertaining article, but for some reason I found myself weeks later still thinking about it and being like, why would someone do that? And who's that person? And so I started researching what we call objective sexuality, which is falling in love with objects and landmark objects. And I found Erica online. And so at the time, it was harder to find people online because it was in 2012 or in 2011. So Instagram wasn't there. And, so I found her. I was really happy. And we started talking. And then we finally called each other. And I think, you were mentioning your personal experience. And for me, the whole movie came from my personal experience, my personal encounter with her. Meaning that when I called her, I think I was calling her as a filmmaker, but really as someone who is very curious to hear and see her and talk to her. I thought she might be a bit more of a freak, So I was really expecting someone very different than the person that I found. And when I talked to her, I realized that she was someone very grounded and that she was talking to me about a love story, like my friend would talk to me about her love story, So for me, it was so strange because I was really not expecting that.
How old was she when you approached her? How old is she?
So she was probably about 35 and she must be about 45 now. Because contrary to the character in the film, she realized this a lot later, not in her early 20s, more like late 20s. So this was a more recent phenomenon for her because she tried, which is kind of like the same in the film, is she tried to have a relationship with men. She even wondered, maybe I'm interested in women, but didn't work, so she was in a relationship with a man for like 5 years and she was telling me the only thing she managed to do with him was make him miserable because she could not love him back the way that he loved her. So that's when she started really sort of realizing that maybe already when she was a teenager, she had some feelings towards objects, inanimate objects, and they were her comfort. So she realized that this is where she felt more comfortable rather than in a relationship with a human being. So for me, it was really interesting because it just pushed my limits of understanding of what love is and what she was and my limit of acceptance as well. And what was I ready to say yes to or no to? And I thought I was a really open-minded person, but when I talked to her, I was like, okay, you have to be even more open-minded. So I suddenly felt myself pushed and challenged. And so I think that experience of, some form of intolerance and curiosity of like the freak that she might be, and then changing into someone that's just one human being talking to another human being was such an interesting experience for me that I felt there is a movie there. Because if I can do something similar with the audience, watching the film and watching the character, going from sometimes judging her, sometimes looking at her from a distance, sometimes having this empathy for her and wanting to follow her all the way through on her journey, then I feel like these are really interesting emotions, and I didn't want to judge at all, because I think these are normal emotions to have, to not be acceptance and then to maybe be acceptance at the end, or to still be questioning. And I wanted the film to be a very emotional film, so that we would not require this, but more the heart, you know. And so that's really what I try to put forward in the film. And also that's why I think that you're mentioning that this kind of ends like a romantic comedy. Originally, the end of the movie was a very dramatic end, my first instinct. And then when I rethought it and I rewrote the story, I was like, why does it have to be this dramatic, tragic end? Because I feel like if that is the case, then I am condemning in a way that relationship, and leaving it as an open romantic relationship, a happy ending for me was more, well, it's her happy ending, whether you think it's a happy ending or not, because that differs on the person watching the film, but it's her happy ending. And that's because that was, from her point of view, it was kind of the only ending I could have, you know?
Personally, I thought usually, you know, in romantic comedies, especially in American romantic comedies, you see many times that the happy ending is imposed on the film, and you say, okay, it's done for the gratification of the audience, and it's a sign of many times it's a sign of mediocrity or wanting to please the audience. But I think that your ending was really bold. I mean, it was maybe the most audacious thing to do, because it confronts you even more as a person with the possibility of that kind of relationship. And I want to ask you, and maybe you can reflect also on your story in light of the true story, because you took the story actually with actual scenes of erotic love. I mean, there is sexual relationship. It's not metaphoric, you know, it's real. And while I'm watching the film, I thought about David Cronenberg and his films. The relationship between man and machine is always, or organic and inorganic, is always present in his films. Also, I remember there is a beautiful song of Kate Bush, love song for washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And but there she used it as a metaphor for her love for some man. Also, Stephen King wrote about a devil washing machine that devours the people who tries to use it as a washing machine. But I think in all the places I saw, I mean, or read about, you know, devices, mechanical devices, and their relationship with men or women, they were more allegoric than actual. I mean, trying to face you with an actual possibility like that. And I thought, and maybe you can elaborate about trying to personify or to give human dimension to a huge carousel in a fair or Luna Park, as we say in Israel.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree with everything that you said. What I wanted specifically to do with the film was to be a bit of both. So I wanted it to be both metaphorical and real, because for me, the whole film is magic realism. So you have that part of fantasy, which is, you know, according to whoever reads the film or looks at the film, is either an invention of the character or the reality of the character. And I think where you position yourself is interesting. And that's why for me, I never wanted to fully impose fantasy as if, you know, she's creating and inventing everything. And I never really wanted to impose complete realism, because I think it's interesting to leave it open for the audience and to choose, well, no, she was just crazy and this was all in her mind. Or no, you know, there are signs that he actually exists and he is that, and she's right in feeling that for the machine. And so then in that sense, the challenge was indeed to personify the machine and Jumbo. And I wanted, because I whether it's real or not, whether it's fantasy or realism, I wanted you to feel along with the character whatever she was feeling for that machine. So because it's grandiose and it's, you know, it's beautiful, I needed to make it alive in a way that it was fantastical and beautiful and all of that. So that was one of the big challenges. But at the same time, if you look at the way that he were personified, we always kept it to some kind of realism, meaning that everything that the machine does in the film, except for maybe the aurora borealis at some point, the kind of, you know, but aside from that, everything that he does in the film is a creation of reality, meaning flashing lights, it's something that the machine does in reality. Moving the way that he does, changing speed is something that he does, you know, going up or down is something that he does naturally. And so for me, it was only expanding from the reality so that you could potentially hesitate between this is really happening and this is not happening. It's not a machine that goes transformer kind of 3D and suddenly becomes this, you know, massive robot that moves, by the way, you know.
How did you come to choose carousel? I mean, where were you? I mean, did you say, okay, I will choose maybe carousel, maybe the big wheel, or how was this process coming about?
Well, first it was going from the Eiffel Tower to the setting of an amusement park. I think I always loved personally amusement parks. What I loved about amusement parks is that it kind of keeps this childhoodness in us, like, you know, it keeps the child alive in us when we go in an amusement park. And I really loved that about the character, that this was an adult character, young adult, sure, but an adult character that was kind of stuck also in some kind of childishness. And so that's what I loved about the amusement park. And then in terms of finding the actual right carousel, it was really hard. When I was writing the script, I had gone online and searched for so many different rides and couldn't find the right one. So I was like, whatever, Zoe, just trust yourself, just write it and you'll find the right one when it comes to it, you know? So I was writing with lights and movements and everything, but the actual body of the machine wasn't clear to me, and it only became clear in pre-production. And so that was a job with my production designer of really getting to know the world of amusement parks and getting to know people from amusement parks and having recommendations from them and talking to them about their machines. Because what's interesting is when they talk to you about their machines, it's like they're best friends. Like they spend their whole life with them and they go around the world with their machines. So it's like a buddy they're transporting from one place to the next. And they're like, do you want me to show you how he moves, you know? And so do you want to give it a try? He'll give you a good ride. And so they personify those machines as well. So when getting to know that well, that's when we had a tip about a machine that's called a Movie 24, which is what we use in the film. But first we could only find it in the States. So we were desperate because we couldn't bring it from the States. And then I think about a month and a half before the shoot, we got a call from someone saying, hey, I heard you were looking for a Movie 24. We found one in France. Are you interested? And so we started talking to someone in France and moved it to Belgium, which that was doable. But the reason why this one was great is because it's big enough to be impressive and to have this grandiosity to it. And it was also quite mobile. So it was moving quite a bit. If you think about it, it can do that, you know, and then a Ferris wheel will only do this. So it's quite static in a way and it's repetitive movement. This one could do a lot of very different movements. And when I went to see it personally and try it, I really realized that his wheel was like a hand, you know, and so if it was going like this on the character, it was very impressive and it could be claustrophobic. But suddenly if it turned, it became a helping hand, like the hand of King Kong catching the girl, you know, that was falling, and it became very comforting and towards the sky and the stars. And so I just loved how, depending on how he was positioned, it just gave me very different kinds of emotions, you know, and that's when I was like, okay, this is really the right one.
It's it's really shame that the audience want to be able to watch the film on cinema on the big screen, because it's such a beautiful film. I mean, a beautiful photography. But okay, what we have now. Yes. It's better than not watching. Yeah, it's not better from not watching the film. I thought about the choosing, you know, a circular machine, like something round, because the Eiffel Tower is very phallic, of course. But you couldn't say that this machine is feminine. It doesn't have, doesn't have actual. You could say that this carousel or this jumbo is they. Yes, it's not manly or feminine. And with this, it goes with the, with the actual, I think maybe times that we are when borders and restrictions and between men and women are being blurred and sometimes even erased. And I think this is a very beautiful, blessed thing. And the film goes, I think, with this. I wanted to ask about the mother-daughter relationship, also in light of choosing the two actresses, Nomi Malent for the teenage, and Emmanuelle Berco, which is, I guess, is a French diva.
Yeah.
And so it's not only the relationship between a young woman and her mother. It's also a relationship between a young actress and a very, established diva. And I think this contributes to the energy, to the chemistry, and also to the collisions, to the conflicts in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because in terms of the two actresses meeting, they've become, we've all become really good friends with throughout working on this movie together. But there was really something about Emmanuelle becoming a bit of a teacher of Noémie. Noémie's an amazing actress, but like there was this motherly relationship that was kind of on screen and off screen. And that, I think, was a really enjoyable thing to do. And sometimes I would even feel excluded because they were so much of that mother-daughter on and off the screen that I suddenly, when you're at the screen, you're like, well, we're all friends. But suddenly it was like, oh no, I am like someone talking to a mother and daughter. And so that was quite intense. The way that we went about like forming this duo was, I knew that Emmanuelle to me was the only French actress that I really could see playing this character. I just had fallen in love with her in My Wednesday, My King, that was in Cannes, where she won a Palme for her acting. I knew her from before in Police, and I had thought she was really interesting. And Emmanuelle is also a director before she's an actress, before she became recognized as an actress. So it was very impressive for me to go up to her and be like, I want to offer you a role, because she's also a director. But she was, first of all, she was very respectful of that position of being an actress there and not a director. But I think it also played in, because the mother in the film is very intense. She has very straightforward ideas. She doesn't realize sometimes that she's a little too much or too abrasive. And I think the fact that, she's one of the few people that I was impressed by, I don't know if you say that, but like it was intense when I was meeting with her. I think it was a really great thing for the film. And so once we casted her, I was casting a lot of young girls, actresses. So we saw like about 100, 150 girls that were sort of up and coming, starting to work in the industry. And I saw Noémie in the very first round of casting, before I had gone through 100 girls. And I thought she had done a very genuine performance, but that she was too strong. And I wanted someone that was a little softer. So I did not call her back. And then I went on to cast 100 more girls and do callbacks, and I was like, they're great, but it's just not that. And I was like, I know I've seen the one already, and I've just not seen it right. So I went back and after you've done so many castings, you start understanding your character differently as well. So I went back and I was like, I have to call this girl back. I know it. And even my casting director was like, no, it's not the right one. And producers, it's not her. And I was like, no, I need to see her again. I haven't given her like the full opportunity. And so she came back with some notes, and she just blew me away. And I just started crying in front of the casting audition. And I was like, okay, this is her. It has to be her. And when I first put the two together, they were working really well together, but at the same time, there was a bit of confrontation. And I thought that was really interesting. And then they became this mother-daughter relationship, like I was saying. So it was just like, everything was there, and yeah, they just meshed so well together. So yeah.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you, I have to tell you that many times when I read uh, actresses or actors talking about the film where there were sex scenes, I usually I get very angry about people's and the newspaper, the media, who always ask them, how was it to do the sex scene, or how was it to be naked in a sex scene? And I think sometimes, you know, you take all the rest of the film out and you put, you know, your spot only on that, and I think this diminishes the film. But I'm going to do this as well because this is so special. I don't know if to call it sex scenes or erotic scenes, but I think there are more sex scenes than erotic scenes. And I'm interested in the, because there is no, well, Jumbo is nude, no? It doesn't have any clothes, but there is no nudity of, actual nudity, real nudity of Nomi, if I remember correctly. So it's not interesting, but it's interesting for me to try to understand with you, how did you work about with her? I mean, to participate, to work with a counterpart on a sex scene, which is a machine.
Yeah. Well, so there is some nudity in the film with Noémie, but I think never any gratuitous nudity, and we had talked about it with Noémie, who is actually an actress that's extremely comfortable with her body, so she feels that her body is really a tool. So that was, in a way, made it easy because she had no, she wasn't afraid of just being naked in front of the camera and in front of a machine and trying something different. So I think she felt it was really a challenge, and me too, but because we had a lot of trust between the two of us, she really based her entire erotic sexual relationship with the machine based on some kind of fantasy that she was creating inside of her mind. And what I think was helping is that I feel like the only real harsher sexual scene is with the man, not with the machine. So everything that was with the machine was erotic and sexual, but it was soft and loving, because that's, you know, the first experience, the first orgasm, the first caress. These were all things that she was discovering with the machine and not with the man. So in a way, like, whatever she was doing with the machine was quite soft, and quite loving. And so I think that helped. I think she was very curious herself to experiment. What does it feel to have sexual sensations and with cold metal versus human skin, you know? And I think she was that curiosity, which is what the character is going through, because for the character, it's something new as well, and it's something that she's not completely 100% sure of when she starts out, she's discovering. So I think the fact that it was the actress's obviously first experience and the character's first experience, their own personal experience, both of the character and the actress, kind of meshed into one to create the sequences. So I think she's just a very daring actress, and in a way we just went for it, and we're like, let's just have some fun and see what comes. You know, we were all discovering. So
yeah, it is. I think it is a film about discovery.
yes.
Yes. Okay, so do you want to say anything that I didn't ask, or to elaborate about something else that it's important for you to mention?
No, I mean, I think we talked a lot about a lot of different things. I think the only thing that I want with this film is hopefully that the film pushes people to ask themselves questions and to push their limits. But hopefully with the film, I'm not imposing a view on people of what they should or should not think. So for me, if the film creates a debate and a discussion after, that's already a win, and that's really what we want to do with the film. And if that discussion is based on emotionally how they felt towards the film. So yeah, no, I just think it's really fun to be able to show it to an audience again, and, you know, be able to share. And hopefully if there's any, since we can't be there face to face and have real Q&As live, etc. If anybody has questions or things about the film, I'm always, if I see it on social media, I'll try and respond to some of the comments. So.
Okay, so I want to welcome you and welcome the audience to watch the film, which is, as I said, it's a fantasy, it's an horror story, it's a love story, it's a coming of age story, and that pushes thoughts and limits what we think about possibilities and acceptance, I think,
Yes.
as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for the film, and hopefully with your next film, we'll see you in person in Israel.
Yes, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I wish I could have come.
Yes. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye.